In a high school, a sports week is underway and a teacher is encouraging the students for the marathon race. Meanwhile, in another part of the grounds, the instructor calls upon Lin Shen, a weak student, informing him that it's his turn. Lin Shen stands there, looking up at the pole, and then jumps up, grabbing it for the dead hanging exercise. However, as soon as he starts the exercise, his body begins to tremble, shocking the instructor. Meanwhile, the other students continue to laugh and make comments, while his pain and exhaustion increase with every passing second. Finally, after 8 seconds, Lin Shen reaches his limit and falls to the ground, leaving his instructor disappointed. This causes his peers to laugh at him, labeling him an 8-second boy. Lin Shen, a third-year student at the high school, has always been physically weak due to falling ill in his childhood, leading everyone to constantly mock and laugh at his weakness. As his instructor sits there disappointed, urging him to try harder, Shen feels that no matter how much effort he puts into other subjects, he will always be seen as weak and useless by others. After leaving the high school for the day, he visits a delivery shop, inquiring if there is any package for him. The shopkeeper asks if the package from Guangdong is his, and he confirms receiving it. While walking back home, he tries to guess what's inside the box, recalling how his illness caused his family to face a severe financial crisis, resulting in his father going to Guangdong to work. As he touches the contents of the package, his expression suddenly changes, and he opens the box to find a handmade Godzilla figure, feeling overwhelmed with joy. Accompanying the figure is a letter from his father, explaining that since he couldn't be there for Lin Shen's birthday, he sent his favorite Godzilla figure as a present. As he reads the letter with tears in his eyes, someone suddenly snatches the toy from the box, and he looks up to see a boy mocking him for still playing with toys. Lin Shen asks the boy to give it back, but he refuses, challenging Lin Shen to a fight instead. He then tightly holds the toy and throws it away, daring Lin Shen to catch it if he can. As Lin Shen tries to prevent the toy from being thrown, it crashes on the other side of the road, causing him to become furious. While the boys stand there, laughing at him, Lin Shen runs towards the road to retrieve the toy. However, as soon as he reaches the toy, a giant truck appears from behind, shocking everyone as they shout to warn him of the danger. Even the truck driver is astonished to see a child suddenly appear before his truck. However, it is already too late to stop the truck, leading it to collide with Shen. As a result, he goes flying along with his backpack and toy, crashing to the ground as the truck continues moving. As he lies there, his body covered in blood, the boys quickly call the rescue team. In his last moments, as he takes his final breaths, Shen wonders if this is the end for him. After a while, he opens his eyes and finds himself underwater, surrounded by numerous fish of different types swimming around him. He looks at his hands, which have transformed into those of a monster, and sees a tail that is now part of his body. Seeing these changes, he wonders if he didn't die after being hit by the truck or if this is the afterlife. He takes in his surroundings, still amazed by his altered appearance. Suddenly, a transparent fish approaches him and informs him that his monster sign evolution system has been activated since he regained consciousness. Shen is shocked by this revelation and expresses his confusion. The fish, named Kun, asks him not to interrupt and continues to explain the details. It instructs him to open the status window, and he follows the instructions. Kun then tells him about the place he is in, his bloodline, and reveals that he is still a young Kui. Intrigued, Shen continues reading about the different privileges associated with being a god beast of the mountains and sea, intensifying his shock. He questions whether this is even possible or if he is just dreaming. Noticing that his claws and tail feel so real, he asks Kun to confirm his location, and it reveals that he is in the Mariana Trench. As a reward for signing in, he receives an S+ ranking skill that allows him to convert food into evolution points. Confused, he asks what an S+ rank is, and Kun explains that it is one of the best abilities a monster can possess. Suddenly, he starts feeling his stomach contract with hunger and wonders why it's happening even though he has the Devour skill. Spotting a distant light shining, he recalls that there are many creatures in the deep sea that emit such light. He swims in that direction, hoping to find food. However, when he reaches the source of the light, he discovers a deep-sea monkfish, one of the most deadly predators underwater. Both the fish and Shen become scared upon seeing each other and quickly swim away in different directions. As Shen swims away, Kun asks why he is afraid of a fish as small as his palm, making him realize that he shouldn't be scared. With cruel intent in his eyes, he stops and turns to see the fish attempting to escape. He uses his tail to strike the fish so hard that it dies on the spot. Shocked by his own actions, he asks if he really did that, prompting Kun to comment on his newfound strength. Holding the fish, he asks if he can eat it to increase his evolution points, and Kun agrees, stating that not eating for a certain amount of time can lead to death by hunger. Shen remarks that it looks ugly and recalls eating it in his past life, noting that it wasn't poisonous but had a bad taste. So he eats it, finding its taste to be much better than expected and gaining 5 evolution points along with the illumination ability as a result. Excited about acquiring it, he activates his illumination skill, and his body suddenly starts to glow. This makes him thrilled, thinking that he can attract his prey to him with this ability. Using this, he begins catching and consuming more and more fish, leading to a significant increase in his evolution points. After eating until his stomach is full, he sits down, recalling that he had never eaten that much seafood in his past life, which has increased his evolution points to 1000. He tells Kun that he wants to evolve using these evolution points. Kun shows him a window with different options and asks which enhancements he desires. Shen chooses scales, claws, and body build. Complying with his request, Kun presses a button, initiating the evolution process, which leads Shen's scales to grow, his claws to strengthen, and his body to increase in size. Observing that he has grown only 1 meter using 500 evolution points, he wonders how much he will have to eat to reach 100 meters in size. Contemplating this, he asks Kun if he is still on Earth, and Kun replies that he has to discover it for himself. Shen expresses his disappointment and believes that being in the Mariana Trench means he is still on Earth, yet appearing in a human city would only lead to missile attacks against him. With that in mind, he decides to grow to 100 meters in size so he cannot be affected by those attacks and can wreak havoc. Determined, he swims after fish, intending to eat until he reaches his ultimate capacity. While doing so, he suddenly enters the range of a giant squid, which ensnares him with its tentacles. Shen realizes that this monstrous creature has been attracted to him due to his glowing dorsal fin. As the squid begins to contract its tentacles, Shen feels powerless against this creature and realizes that he may die either from suffocation or constriction. With tears streaming down his face, he thinks that he cannot die immediately after being reborn and yearns to live. Suddenly, he spots a gigantic sperm whale approaching, which causes the squid to loosen its grip on Shen and free him. However, right after that, the squid captures the whale in its tentacles, making Shen realize how weak he is in front of these colossal beasts. Nevertheless, now considering himself a monster, he decides to no longer be timid. Remembering the way people treated him in his past life, he resolves to be bloodthirsty, fierce, and violent. Clenching his fist, he vows never to run away again or be bullied by others. Determined, he swims near the two beasts fighting for their lives and bites the squid, declaring that anyone who provokes him will be torn apart by him. Shen, after tearing the squid's tentacle and taking a bite, finds it to taste like raw cuttlefish. Instantly, he receives a notification informing him of a 21-point increase in his evolution points, which surprises him. Encouraged by this, he decides to continue eating as much as he can, leading to a continuous rise in his evolution points. While he devours the squid, it begins to feel the pain and tries to ensnare him once again with its tentacles. However, this time, instead of being frightened, Shen uses his claws and teeth to tear the tentacle apart and consume it, causing the squid immense pain. Weakening, the squid soon becomes prey to both the sperm whale and Shen. After a short while, only a few pieces of the squid remain floating in the water while the whale and Shen settle with their full stomachs. Eating just half of the squid rewards Shen with over 3,000 evolution points, leaving him excited and shocked. At that moment, he turns to the whale, which is staring at him, and asks if it wants to fight him. Suddenly, the whale opens its mouth to consume Shen, and he in turn uses his sharp scales to harm the creature. Here, noticing the defiance in the whale's eyes, Shen wonders if it looks down on him, fueling his anger. However, instead of fighting, the whale begins to back off, and Shen decides to let it go this time since it had saved him from the squid earlier. Once the whale leaves, he calls on Kun to upgrade him once again, and Kun complies, resulting in a significant increase in his size, strength, and abilities. As he observes his newfound physicality, Shen wishes there were more monsters around so he could experience the thrill of consuming them early on. Surveying his surroundings, he contemplates that, with his current speed, he could easily defeat 50 giant squids with just one claw. Suddenly, Kun arrives and reveals that Shen's reward for devouring the giant squid is a monster compass, leaving Shen surprised. Upon Shen's inquiry, Kun explains that the monster compass is an inner compass that can sense the presence of nearby monsters. This makes Shen contemplate the potential of silently approaching dangerous monsters using this skill. He feels relieved knowing that this skill will protect him from being attacked and decides to turn off his dorsal fin light to avoid detection and work in silence. After a week of swimming in the shallow part of the sea, Shen realizes that there are no large fish in that area, and he is not big enough to confront the great white sharks. With his current body size of 30 meters, he can barely satisfy his needs by defeating the giant squids, who have started hiding from him after their previous encounters. Unable to find food in the deep sea, Shen decides to try his luck in the shallow area. However, after failing to find food there as well, he decides to sign in first before returning to the deep sea. He asks Kun to assist him with that, and Kun complies by signing him into the Abyss Island sea area. As a reward, Shen gains a skill called Burst Breath, which excites him. He believes that he has stumbled upon an excellent place by accident. Sensing his compass, Shen deduces that since it has detected many monsters in the area, there might not be any humans around. However, he still decides to explore to be certain and swims through the turbulent undercurrents in the sea, realizing that he wouldn't have been able to endure them if he weren't a monster. After covering some distance, he reaches a massive rock and climbs up, finally setting foot on land. Before him lies an island with a dense forest and mesmerizing beauty, teeming with numerous animal and insect species. Observing this, he concludes that it is highly unlikely for humans to coexist alongside such prehistoric creatures. Nonetheless, he feels glad that his issue with the evolution points has been resolved. With that thought in mind, Shen ventures onto the island, deciding to start by chopping down a few trees. As he takes deep breaths, he realizes that despite enjoying the breaths in the deep sea, he still loves the freshness of the air combined with the scent of vegetation. Suddenly, he notices two pterosaurs flying above his head, approaching him with the intention of killing him. Seeing them, Shen wonders if they are insane to consider such a gigantic monster as their prey. However, as the pterosaurs get closer, Shen swiftly dodges their attacks and fights back. Utilizing his claws, he incapacitates one of the creatures and proceeds to bite into it with his teeth, finding it to be crunchy, unlike chicken, as he consumes it. Surprisingly, this results in a 1,000-point increase in his evolution points, prompting him to continue eating more of the pterosaurs. Delighted to experience a change in taste from seafood, he looks up at the pterosaurs flying in the air, observing their scared expressions. Realizing that they won't come down, Shen decides to employ his newly acquired skills to capture them and activates the Burst Breath. Upon activating the Burst Breath, Shen's entire body begins to glow, instilling fear in the pterosaurs. He then opens his mouth, intending to release a burst of fire, causing the pterosaurs to tremble in fear. However, when he exhales, only a small flame appears momentarily before vanishing, surprising both Shen and the birds. Enraged, the pterosaurs glare at him with anger in their eyes, while Shen stands still, urging them to calm down. Suddenly, the pterosaurs start rushing towards him with murderous intent, overwhelming him with their sheer numbers. Anxious, he asks Kun why the burst breath is not functioning properly. Kun explains that to execute such a dominant move, Shen needs to concentrate all his energy, feel it coursing through his body, and condense it within his mouth. Hearing this, Shen finds it similar to cultivation techniques described in novels, questioning if it's truly the correct approach. As the pterosaurs continue their relentless attacks, Shen implores Kun to guide him on how to properly use the skill before he succumbs to their assault. However, Kun reiterates that it has already explained the method, repeating the steps Shen must follow. Shen, understanding, declares that he will attempt it, closing his eyes in concentration. Meanwhile, the pterosaurs viciously slash his skin with their claws, causing him to lose balance as more of the creatures close in, tearing at his body. Disheartened, he observes the small birds inflicting wounds upon him while Kun holds its head, disappointed by his inability to retaliate. In that moment, Shen recalls his experiences of being beaten up by boys in his past life when he focused on the person directly in front of him, the one closest to him. As Shen realizes this similarity, Kun begins to mock his timidity, even in his previous existence. Gathering all this energy, he recollects how he eventually triumphed against those boys by attacking the one nearest to him. With that in mind, Shen decides to disregard his pain and channel all this energy into his mouth. This results in a colossal blast of fire erupting from his mouth, engulfing all the creatures and leading to their demise. Upon seeing his success, Shen considers this power to be incredibly amazing. However, he begins to feel a weakness, realizing that he needs to eat to replenish his lost energy. Observing the monsters churn to charcoal, he starts consuming them, calling them his first cooked meat. After finishing his meal with his mouth covered in charcoal, Shen feels thirsty and seeks water to quench his parched throat. Passing through a mountain with a hole caused by his burst breath, Shen arrives at a beautiful lake. Surprisingly, there are no animals around the lake, making him wonder if it's because the water is salty or if there is something dangerous lurking within. Suddenly, the rock in the middle of the lake begins to move, revealing itself to be a mountain ox, much to Shen's surprise. However, as the ox rises from the water, it is attacked by king crocodiles that surround it from all sides, with one of them gripping its leg. The crocodiles pull the ox into the water, creating a massive splash, and soon resurface with the ox reduced to a mere skeleton. Now, they turn their attention to Shen as their next prey. This realization clarifies why other animals avoid drinking water from this lake. Nevertheless, Shen feels confident in his ability to defeat the crocodiles. Just as a crocodile rushes towards him to attack, emerging from the water, a gigantic ape hand grabs its tail. Shen watches in surprise as the hand swings the crocodile, smashing it into the mountain and killing it instantly. As Shen's curiosity peaks, the ape jumps down from the mountain, swiftly eliminating all the crocodiles in its path, and lands on the water. The ape turns its back on Shen and starts consuming the dead crocodiles. Suddenly, it notices the live crocodiles taking away the dead ones and rushes towards them, killing them all as well. It then notices Shen standing nearby, thinking that the ape might consider him a competitor. Shen decides to simply move away and justify that he was just passing by. However, he realizes that he is still using human language that an ape cannot understand. While stating that he doesn't intend to fight, Shen starts recalling the meanings of different gestures from gorillas and deduces that the one in front of him is scared but doesn't want to show it. Considering this, he turns to face it, prepared to fight. However, seeing the gorilla grow extremely angry, Shen becomes fearful and starts running away, understanding that he shouldn't mess with it. He wonders what caused the gorilla to become so enraged all of a sudden. Soon, the gorilla catches up to him and begins beating the ground, signaling its desire to fight. Witnessing its simple yet immensely powerful movements, Shen thinks of it as brainless and decides to engage in combat. Just as the gorilla tries to punch him, Shen dodges the attack and bites its arm, causing the gorilla to experience intense pain. Shen follows up with a swift tail movement, delivering a powerful strike that knocks the gorilla off balance. Wanting to finish the fight with a punch, Shen is caught off guard as the gorilla forcefully punches him instead, causing him to lose balance and crash to the ground. It dawns on him that the gorilla is not only strong but also possesses nimble movements. While he ponders this, the gorilla jumps down towards him, roaring, and approaches closely, realizing that the only possible move he can currently use is the burst breath. Shen understands that even that skill will take time to charge. Just as the gorilla raises its hand once again to strike him, Shen manages to reach its other hand and bite it. Enraged, the gorilla uses its other hand to free the wounded hand from Shen's grip. It then forcefully opens Shen's mouth with both hands, causing him to endure extreme pain. Suddenly, the gorilla's expression changes as it sees a bright light emerging from Shen's mouth. Following this, the scales on Shen's body started to glow, further shocking the gorilla. This is followed by the emergence of a bright bubble from his mouth, causing the gorilla to move away in surprise. However, before it can move away, Shen tightly holds the gorilla through his tail and unleashes a massive burst of breath, striking it with tremendous force. The impact causes the gorilla to crash into a huge rock, resulting in a wound on its chest. Shen wonders how strong the gorilla is to have gotten just a small wound, considering that the burst breath could even penetrate mountains. Suddenly, the gorilla begins to roar again, confusing Shen, and then it escapes. Thinking that he has defeated all the strong creatures on the island, Shen decides to become the boss there. After using the burst breath twice, Shen feels very weak. However, since there are still king crocodiles lurking around, he doesn't want to show them his weakness. Therefore, he heads to the lake and starts consuming the leftovers of the crocodiles, which leads to an increase in his evolution points. This also results in an upgrade to his defense skills, making him quite excited. Feeling much more powerful than before, he stands in the middle of the lake with the crocodiles approaching to attack. However, he successfully kills them all and consumes them, leading to a further increase in his evolution points. 1 week later, Shen sits on the island, lighting a fire through his burst breath and cooking meat on it. He considers himself witty for proposing this cooking method. While eating a piece of meat, he asks the system to sign him in again, which leads him to attain a class skill called the radioactive heat ray. This skill allows him to emit a high heat mist flame, making him overwhelmed with excitement. Shen wonders if he has obtained the body of the European emperor, recalling that he received the upgraded version of the monster compass 2 days ago, which allows him to view the attributes of monsters. He also remembers attaining an A-class skill called Thorn Armor upon signing in the previous day, along with the skill he just obtained. He thinks that not even the game called 9999 would have given him this much. While he is thinking about this, a giant rat comes running and sits beside him. Shen gives it a piece of roasted beef to eat, saying that it is the rat's promised part. While they both are eating, Shen says that this rat reminds him of his past life, where he used to be so thin and was always bullied by everyone. However, he considers the rat lucky because it has him as its boss from now on, stating that in his presence, no one can dare bully it. After finishing the meal, he stands up and wonders if his large size will now be enough to fight the ape. He feels bored staying alone on a deserted island and wants to find a strong companion for himself, for which he considers a gorilla to be the best fit. Thinking about this, he asks Kun to use all his evolution points to upgrade his body build. Complying with Shen's request, Kun uses all 40,000 evolution points, but it only leads to a 0.5 meter increase in his height, causing Shen to feel disappointed. Recalling that it only required him 100 evolution points to grow 1 meter in size, he asks Kun about the reason, and Kun explains that, just like in games, it requires more evolution points to upgrade at higher levels. Understanding this, Shen wonders how much he will have to eat to grow 100 meters in size. However, caring less about that, he turns and starts searching for something under the stones. After a while, he takes out a ball made of the gorilla's hair and gives it to the mouse, saying that it is time for it to play its part. After the rat smells the hair, Shen asks if it can find the gorilla through this scent, and the rat agrees. In response, Shen tells it to locate the gorilla using the hair, promising to treat it with beef every day for a year in return. With that, he starts following the mouse and leaves his territory, while all the other animals celebrate his departure, feeling relieved that they are finally safe from him, whom they call the god of play. Turning to them, he explains that he is only looking for a companion, and after he brings it back, their suffering will only increase. After covering a long distance following the mouse, Shen reaches a desolate place and asks where they are. Gazing at the dark cave in front of him, he asks the mouse if it brought him to the wrong place, considering that it doesn't seem like a habitat for apes. Thinking that no animal would want to live in such a dangerous place, he asks the mouse again if they have arrived at the right location, but the mouse keeps pointing towards the entrance of the cave. Contemplating whether the cave is indeed this dangerous, Shen assures the trembling mouse that he will take care of it. Upon entering the cave, Shen is unable to detect the energy of a monster using his compass, making him question if there is really someone inside. Suddenly, he hears the roar of a monster that doesn't seem particularly strong, which raises doubts in his mind about it being an ape. He decides to quietly investigate and looks inside, only to find a spider's lair. As he looks around, he spots the ape, now transformed into a girl, who is tied up. Surprised by her transformation, Shen asks the girl how she became so small while noticing the wound on her chest caused by his burst flame that hasn't healed yet. Recognizing him, the girl asks why he is here, shocking him with her ability to speak the human language. Intrigued, Shen asks if the ape cultivated herself to become refined and turned into a goblin. Worried, the girl urges him to be careful and look around, and he does so, only to find countless dead and rotten reptiles approaching him with murderous intent in their eyes. As the reptiles approach him, Shen grabs one of them in his hand and uses his compass to check their details. Upon checking, he realizes that these reptiles are one of the biggest enemies of the apes and finds them disgusting. Just as the reptile he is holding tries to bite him, he crushes it in his hand, causing his hand to get dirty with the reptile's blood. Following that, he notices many more of them approaching him. Just then, one of those comes near Shen to bite him, but he hits it so hard that it goes flying in another direction. Meanwhile, another reptile climbs up his back and attempts to bite his scales, but they prove to be too hard, causing the reptile to fall back. Despite others continuing to climb up his body, Shen decides to show them his strength and activates his thorn armor, instantly knocking them all away, leaving the girl shocked. After getting rid of them, Shen takes a deep breath while feeling disgusted by his entire body being sticky due to the reptiles. Suddenly, one of the remaining reptiles turns towards the girl and tries to harm her, but Shen crushes it, stating that no one can harm her in his presence. This scares the others, who start to move away. However, before they can escape, Shen stops them and unleashes his burst breath, burning them all to death. Meanwhile, the girl gazes at them, unable to believe what she is witnessing. Turning to her, Shen tells her not to be scared of him, assuring her that no one can harm her in his presence. He begins freeing her from the sticky traps she has stuck in while observing her severe wound. After freeing her, Shen expresses his curiosity about her transformation and asks how it happened. She jumps down and looks around as if searching for something. After a while, she finds a small bone and holds it in her hand. This makes Shen think that she is scared of him, so he tells her not to be afraid and assures her that he doesn't bully the weak. To his surprise, she takes out a fruit and shows it to Shen, explaining that she ate a fruit, which caused her transformation from an ape to a human. Surprised by this revelation, Shen stares at the fruit, contemplating whether it is a legendary devil fruit or a transformation pill from fantasy novels. Upon hearing about the miraculous fruit, Shen tells the girl that it's time for her to witness a miracle. She stands beside him, clueless about what he is about to do. Suddenly, Shen opens his mouth and unleashes the same burst of breath, directing it towards the dead reptiles. The girl stands nearby, shock evident in her eyes. Holding one of the roasted reptiles on a stick, Shen finds them disgusting to eat, but he knows he has to do it to increase his evolution points. He roasts them a bit more, calling them delicious after they are cooked, intensifying the girl's hunger upon hearing the word delicious. Giving one of the reptiles to the girl and the mouse, he tells them it smells good and introduces it as a skewer, causing their mouths to water. After a while, all three of them start eating the roasted reptiles, remarking that they do indeed taste good. Turning to the girl, Shen exclaims that she could still turn back into an ape, thinking that she wouldn't have been bullied by the reptiles if she had transformed earlier. In response, the girl replies that it's not possible for her to turn back into an ape again. Wondering what kind of food she ate, Shen realizes that she cannot survive in her human form on this island filled with deadly monsters, yet he wonders how she is enjoying these reptiles. Shen ponders if she has a family or if she is alone, realizing that she would have been killed by the reptiles if he had not arrived there. Understanding that she cannot survive on an island like this, Shen asks Kun if it can turn her back to her original form, and Kun agrees, referring to their system as a science beast. However, Kun explains that in order to do that, it needs to analyze the composition of the fruit. Once the composition is analyzed, Kun will reformulate it, allowing the girl to transform back into an ape and freely change her form between human and monster. Understanding this, Shen decides to go out and search for that fruit, knowing that the ability to transform between human and monster would even allow him to return to the human world. Recalling his last location on the system to be the Mariana Trench, Shen mentions that this transformation ability would even allow him to reunite with his parents. Turning to the girl, Shen asks if she remembers where she picked the fruit from, and she tells him that she found it near the cliff and piles of bones. Upon hearing that, he asks her to guide them to that place after they finish eating, as they can transform her back into an ape. Continuing to eat, Shen experiences a significant increase in his evolution points. Considering that he has traveled from the human world to another parallel world, Shen feels glad, thinking that even after turning into a human, he can team up with the ape and live a happy life without regrets. 2 hours later, Shen walks away from the cave to find the miraculous fruit, as directed by the ape. He comes across countless human skulls under the cliff, wondering what might have happened in that area. Just then, the ape points towards a tree on top of the cliff and tells him that the fruit is on that tree. Catching sight of the fruit, Shen decides to climb up the cliff in order to obtain some. However, while in the middle of it, he spots a pterosaur flying above it and wonders if it will attack him. The pterosaur then approaches in his direction, making him think it is targeting him. However, to his surprise, the pterosaur goes to the tree, picks a fruit, and eats it. Curious, Shen decides to wait and see what this monster will transform into. To his surprise, right after taking a bite from the fruit, the monster undergoes a transformation, turning into a human. However, right after transforming, it falls off the cliff, making Shen realize that the piles of bones under the cliff were caused by monsters transforming into humans and falling off the cliff. Considering it to be an ominous place, Shen decides to take the fruit and leave immediately. However, as he looks up, he is shocked to see a gigantic monster descending the cliff towards the tree. The monster is a deathlark, a mysterious giant bird with the blood of the ancient beast Yuchang. Seeing it, Shen wonders why it is here and contemplates if it is the guardian of the fruit tree. While Shen turns towards the girl to discuss the expression on the lark's face, the girl looks up in surprise. Looking up, Shen realizes that the deathlark is looking directly at them, which shocks and scares him. However, noticing that the bird doesn't seem to want to fight back, Shen approaches the tree and explains that he was told by his friend about the delicious fruits there. He asks the bird if he can take 2 of them. Picking up 2 fruits from the tree, he thanks the bird and begins descending the cliff. However, the bird knows that eating this fruit will cause him to transform into a human and fall off the cliff, resulting in his death. Therefore, it flies down in their direction, leaving Shen shocked and confused. Unexpectedly, the bird angrily flies past them and starts hovering above them. Shen wonders why it has suddenly become hostile, mentioning that he only took 2 of its fruits. He then asks Kun to store the fruits in the system, saying that he cannot climb down with them. Kun asks if it needs to analyze the fruits, stating that analyzing them would require 1 million evolution points, which Shen currently does not have. Realizing this, Shen exclaims that he should not have spent his evolution points so recklessly. Meanwhile, the death lark approaches him from behind with a cruel intent in its eyes. Using its sharp claws, the bird inflicts a fatal wound on Shen, prompting him to retaliate by using his radiation heat ray. As a result, the lark loses its wings one by one and falls off the cliff. Shen knows that based on his current condition, no matter which ignition skill he uses, he cannot accurately hit the target and needs to find an opportunity to do so. Just then, the bird retaliates and rises up again. However, this time, Shen surprises it by getting on its back and biting it in order to control its movements. This causes the bird to scream in agony and fly in the direction that Shen wants it to. With great speed, the bird starts to soar upward, causing Shen and the girl to feel scared. Yet, once the bird reaches the clouds, Shen finds it to be beautiful. Realizing that he had never been on a plane in his previous life and did not expect such an experience in this life. Suddenly, the bird starts to descend towards the cliff, leaving them confused. Seeing that it is about to collide with the cliff, both Shen and the girl become scared, wondering if the bird has gone crazy. While the bird flies towards the cliff at great speed, Shen notices a lake beside them and thinks that jumping into the lake at the right time using the burst breath can save him. Thinking this, he starts cultivating his inner energy and unleashes a burst of breath directed towards the bird. This causes the bird to experience immense pain while Shen and the girl jump into the lake and the bird collides with the cliff. As a result, the fruit tree breaks and all the fruits fall down. From the lake, Shen watches as the bird falls from the cliff and crashes amidst the piles of human bones. Feeling overjoyed at having won, he tells the girl that they will eat chicken that night to celebrate. However, while laughing, one of the transformation fruits falls into his mouth and he unknowingly swallows it. Just then, he realizes that he has consumed the transformation fruit, which leads him to undergo a transformation. After a while, his body starts to transform into that of a human, with all the scales disappearing. Upon looking at his reflection in the water, he discovers that he has turned into a human, albeit a muscular one. He then notices that he still has a small tail and wonders why it has not disappeared. Looking at the bird, he wonders if it is alive or dead, thinking that turning into a human at this moment is dangerous for him. Thinking that he still needs 6,000 more evolution points for the fruit to be analyzed, he considers consuming the bird in case it is dead to gain some evolution points. However, just then, the bird starts to rise, leaving him shocked. It then lifts the human corpse that fell from the cliff a while ago, with a crystal floating over its body. While Shen contemplates what this crystal is, the bird throws the corpse aside and consumes the crystal, which causes its wounds to heal. After a while, the bird fully heals and flies away, leaving Shen feeling both relieved to have been saved and disappointed to not get a chance to eat it. After that, he decides to find a place to hide and devour small monsters to gain evolution points. While getting out of the water, he thinks that he should have taken a few bites from the bird's back to earn at least a few evolution points. Just then, the girl turns to him, urging him to hurry while pointing at the danger behind him. He then turns to see a giant king crocodile approaching him. Just then, the crocodile opens its mouth to attack Shen, leaving him bewildered. Seeing that, Shen backs off, asking if they are unaware of the rules of fighting to use sneaky attacks on such a small opponent. Just then, he notices many more crocodiles approaching him and recalls that with this small body, he always became the victim of bullying and mockery, even at school, let alone on this dangerous island. Thinking this, he starts swimming at great speed to reach the crocodile facing him in order to kill it, wondering if this potential is a result of a sudden crisis that struck him. As he reaches the crocodile, whose eyes are glowing with killing intent, he realizes that the crocodile even knows how to maneuver back and forth. However, he still leaps up to fight the crocodile and reaches the crocodile's mouth, holding it tightly with his hands, remembering the weak muscles in the crocodile's mouth. While holding the crocodile's mouth, he states that just because he is not in his monster form does not mean that he is weak, since he still has the same knowledge. Just then, the crocodile starts using a deadly rotation to roll into the water, causing Shen to contemplate what to do now. He knows that freeing the crocodile will lead to him getting swallowed, yet if he keeps holding it, he will become prey to other crocodiles approaching him. Just then, the girl comes to his aid, throwing a vine at him and telling him to catch it. Just as he is about to be devoured by the crocodiles, he catches the vine while the girl pulls him up, saving him from the deadly attacks of those monstrous creatures. Taking him away from the water, the girl jumps to the ground along with him, making him feel like he just cosplayed as Tarzan. Just then, another crocodile emerges from the water, causing them to escape, yet their passage is blocked by the second crocodile, who uproots a tree and appears in front of them. Seeing the girl yell and beat her chest in response, Shen asks why she is doing so, stating that she is not as powerful a monster as before and needs to run to save her life. With that, he holds her arm and urges her to run quickly without looking back as the crocodile follows. While running, Shen wonders if they ate too many crocodiles as monsters, causing the other crocodiles to despise them so much. Just then, Kun appears, stating that Shen is currently in a very pitiful condition. Shen implores it to analyze the fruit on credit, yet it refuses to do so, calling itself principled. In response, Shen begins earnestly requesting it, asking it to help him in such a moment, yet Kun refuses, leaving him disappointed and frustrated. However, it gives Shen clothes to cover his body, stating that it is a reward for signing in. As Shen wears the clothes, he notices the girl running towards a tree and climbing it, and he thinks that she is quite smart to know how to use her skills. Just then, she turns back, asking Shen to climb up as well, yet Shen states that it is not his skill, and he used to be very weak in his previous life, unable to even climb a tree. However, thinking that he must overcome this fight, he begins climbing up, escaping the crocodile at a great speed. While doing so, he thinks that this potential is not the result of a sudden crisis that strikes, since it never happened in his previous life, no matter what he faced. He thinks that even in his human form, his physical fitness is countless times stronger than in his previous life. Feeling good about it, he keeps climbing up until he catches up to the girl. However, before he can settle on a branch, the crocodile starts shaking the tree by colliding with it, causing Shen's foot to slip, and he begins to fall down. However, before he can descend much, the girl catches him, holding his hand tightly while calling him an idiot. Thanking her, he thinks that he is being ridiculed by a silly person. With that, they begin climbing up the tree until they reach a branch and settle on it. While the crocodiles struggle to take them down, they take a sigh of relief, yet the crocodiles keep shaking the tree to make them fall. Seeing their futile efforts, Shen starts to mock them for being unable to shake such a huge tree. Because they are small reptiles. Just then, he notices the girl staring at him and asks for the reason. In response, the girl laughs, remarking that he too has become small like her, making him frustrated as he asks if she wants to fight him. Seeing her expression, he asks if she really wants to do it, stating that it is not the time to fight amongst themselves. Just then, they turn back to see a gigantic prehistoric python approaching them, making Shen realize that they can never escape this danger. Addressing Kun, Shen exclaims that his compass is really useful to always inform him that the opponent is stronger than him. Turning to the python, he asks why it wants to kill him since he has never killed a python before. Just then, the girl, using her quick strategy, jumps to a lower branch which Shen then grabs his hand, urging him to run quickly. Seeing her quickly jump from one branch to another, Shen tries to do the same while asking Kun to give him the transformation fruit back. While the python follows them at great speed, Shen shares his strategy to throw the fruit into the python's mouth to transform it into a human and feed it to the crocodiles. However, Kun, showing him a bill, says that he needs 100,000 evolution points to analyze it. However, Shen insists on canceling the analysis, upon which Kun states that he will still need 100,000 evolution points to terminate the analysis process, making him feel overly annoyed. While the girl keeps heading forward, Shen stands there, venting his anger on the host, saying that it is brainless and useless and he will definitely complain about it. Just then, he notices that the girl is about to become a victim of the approaching python and tells her to watch out. Just as the python opens its mouth to consume her, Shen jumps down and pushes her away. This leads her to fall aside while Shen himself gets swallowed by the python. Inside the python's body, Shen lies wondering what place this is. Looking at his surroundings, he thinks that he has reached the python's stomach. However, he feels lucky to not experience the corrosion of stomach acid, wondering if it is because of his strong physicality. However, considering that staying here for too long might lead him to get corroded, he decides to find a way to escape as soon as possible. Thinking that he has not used his past skills after transforming, he thinks that if he can use the burst breath, he can easily create a hole to escape, and he starts cultivating his energy. However, Kun stops him from condensing too much energy, saying that this will lead him to burn himself, revealing that the human form is much weaker than the thunder dragon form. Telling him that his current level of burst breath will be quite weak and ineffective, Kun suggests enhancing his biting and devouring power by turning the burst breath into a burst bite. Considering that devouring the inside of the python can lead to an increase in his evolution points, Shen thinks that he can do that to obtain the required evolution points and become a monster again. Although it feels disgusting, Shen, thinking that he has to do it, no matter what, moves forward and takes a bite, feeling pathetic due to the bad taste. Right after taking one bite, Shen gets a 150-point increase in his evolution points, making him feel quite excited and encouraged to continue the process and gain more points. Shen continues devouring the python from the inside, causing it immense pain and making it start rolling over, which feels like a car turning over to Shen. However, stating that no amount of tossing can stop him from biting to make a hole in its stomach, Shen continues doing just that. Suddenly, he feels like the snake is about to regurgitate him and starts sinking into its muscles. However, stating that it won't be easy to expel him as he was taken in, he holds on tightly. Just then, Kun informs him that he has reached the required count of evolution points and asks if he wants to initiate the analysis of the fruit, to which Shen agrees. With that, the analysis process begins with an estimated completion time of 30 minutes. Considering that he will have to stay in there for half an hour, Shen asks if it's possible to speed up the process, to which Kun agrees but demands an additional 1,000 evolution points. Enraged, Shen holds onto Kun tightly, asking why it is so obsessed with evolution points. Yet, Kun explains that the evolution points are necessary for the system to work. Shen, crying, calls Kun's system very cruel for having such demands and starts devouring the python again, earning 1,000 more points and speeding up the process to 25%. Continuing to devour the python, he gains more and more evolution, while the python rides in agony, collapsing over the king crocodiles, until the analysis process is complete. After the analysis is finished, he is asked where he wants to extract the fruit, to which he agrees, and Kun extracts the fruit, whose color has now changed to green. Considering that green represents treatment and life-saving, Shen starts consuming the fruit, finding its taste to be like that of papaya. After finishing eating the fruit, Shen throws its seed away and sits, waiting to be transformed. However, even after a long time, he does not transform, growing frustrated. Turning to Kun, he asks if it lied to him, yet Kun explains that while analyzing the fruit, it found out that the fruit contains energy that does not belong to this world. After entering the monster's body, this energy transforms the monster's like source into a small crystal nucleus. Explaining that, Kun asks Shen to use his mind to break the crystal nucleus and transfer its energy into the limbs and bones to become a monster again. Hearing this, Shen asks if he is not breaking the world of cultivation this way, yet Kun urges him to try it and know if it's the truth or not. Upon this, Shen asks if he needs to find an enlightenment stone and sit on it to contemplate enlightenment for a long time, yet Kun tells him to simply close his eyes and feel it. Agreeing, he closes his eyes and sits in a meditation position, trying to locate the essence of life in his body. After some time, he succeeds in finding the crystal and wonders how to break it and transfer it to his limbs. Recalling reading a theory about throwing medicine balls to learn the use of strength, he realizes that feeling the power of the crystal nucleus is the same as that of muscles. He also remembers learning the theory well, but being bad at its practical application. However, thinking that he is not the same as in his previous life, he vows to succeed in this. Suddenly, he feels the crystal cracking, followed by it breaking into different pieces, spreading its energy throughout his entire body. This leads him to undergo a transformation again. Suddenly, the abdomen of the python starts to swell as it stands facing the girl. As the python struggles to spit Shen out, its body suddenly bursts, turning it into pieces, and Shen emerges as a monster from the inside, shocking both the girl and the crocodiles. He stands tall, glad to have transformed back, and suddenly turns to the crocodiles, asking if they enjoyed bullying him a lot. After killing all those crocodiles, Shen gathers wood by breaking trees and lights a fire using his burst breath skill in order to roast them, considering the monster's body to be much better. While he does so, the girl asks how he suddenly transformed back to being even taller than before. In response, Shen simply replies that this is because he sleeps early, wakes up early, and eats a lot, while thinking that he cannot reveal secrets that easily. With that, he finishes roasting the crocodiles and offers the girl and the mouse something to eat, stating that they taste good. While eating himself, he remarks that although he is traumatized by staying in the snake's stomach, he cannot waste food. Suddenly, he comes across a bitter gourd and asks Kun to confirm if it is edible. In response, Kun starts giving the details of the vegetable along with its benefits for human health and urges Shen to eat it, stating that he should not be a picky eater. Because he hates bitter gourd, he thinks that he should give it to the girl in order to heal her chest wound and offers it to her, saying that it is a dessert, making her feel happy. Taking it from him, she takes a bite, considering it to be a fruit, but right after eating it, she finds it disgustingly bitter and throws it away. However, just then, she starts feeling that her wounds do not hurt anymore and examines her body to find that her wounds have already healed, shocking Shen with such a fast healing effect. Seeing this effect, she picks up the bitter gourd again and starts consuming the whole of it, feeling an overwhelming surge of energy in her body afterward. Seeing her beat her chest again, Shen asks her to change this habit of hers, stating that her wound would have healed earlier if she had stopped doing that. Upon this, she explains that when encountering monsters, she needs to do that in order to avoid a fight and make her opponent scared. Shen asks why she did not do it with him at their first encounter and beat him up straight away. She explains that it was because he made a rude gesture by taking away her food. She further explains that territory and food are the two things for which they have to fight if yelling doesn't work. Wondering about that, Shen realizes that the world of monsters is not bad or evil, but simply straightforward. Considering that, he thinks that if he starts yelling, he will look much cooler while the girl stares at him with confusion. He asks the girl to eat and quickly raises her evolution points so that he can transform her back into an ape. Recalling that he almost got killed by the D-Flark, he asks the girl how she escaped the bird and got caught by the dead, rotten reptiles. In response, she explains that she was picking fruits from the cliff and ate one of them, which led her to transform into a human and she fell off the cliff. Seeing Shen listening to the story with interest, she continues to tell him that after falling, she clung to a rock and witnessed the D-Flark being attacked by countless dead, rotten reptiles. She saw the bird's head being injured by the reptiles and witnessing such a gigantic bird being bullied was unexpected for her. This astonishes Shen equally and he thinks that an enemy of an enemy is a friend. She continues to tell him that finally, the bird managed to fly away and she was the one who fell into the trap of the dead, rotten reptiles. Shocked, Shen asks why they took her to the cave instead of eating her and she reveals that they might be planning to give her to the king of the dead, rotten reptiles. Shocked, Shen asks if their king wanted her as a wife and she reveals that this island used to be very beautiful in the past until the dead, rotten reptiles appeared and destroyed it. This makes Shen realize why the territory of the dead, rotten reptiles was so desolate and gloomy. She tells him that her parents, along with some other animals, went to fight the king of the dead, rotten reptiles but never returned. After growing up, she also joined the battle and tried to locate her parents, eventually finding a reptile's lair. Due to her scent resembling that of her parents, the reptiles caught her as well. Hearing that, Shen tells her not to worry, saying that being the bigger one, he will help her in every way he can to achieve her goal. Considering this island as a second home, Shen vows never to let anyone destroy it again. However, considering that the king of the dead, rotten reptiles even defeated the apes and other monsters, he thinks that it will not be easy. He realizes that he needs to upgrade as soon as possible in order to grow to a size of 100 meters and be able to easily compete with the king of the dead, rotten reptiles. After that day, Shen and the girl start living together in the girl's former residence, working hard in collaboration to enhance their evolution points. However, the girl, being an ape by origin, cannot let go of her habits of shouting and beating her chest, which annoys Shen a lot. While Shen is observing her, he suddenly spots two gigantic saber-toothed tigers approaching her from behind, making him think that her yelling is definitely of great benefit. Without hesitation, the tigers leap to attack her, but she turns back just in time. Before they can harm her, Shen appears from behind and halts their attacks using his foot. He remarks that perverts like them can only show their power in front of weak creatures. Seeing him, the tigers start trembling with fear while Shen uses his sharp teeth to tear them apart, stating that the word vert in pervert means to kill. Afterwards, he roasts the meat on a fire inside the cave while gazing at his messy surroundings, unlike a girl's room. While consuming the meat, he remarks that using her voice to attract monsters is very convenient, yet he asks why there are very few monsters in her area. In response, the girl reveals that she eats 8 meals a day but has recently not seen as many monsters. Hearing this, Shen mocks her IQ and explains that this is because she has already consumed all the monsters that existed in the area. She then explains that she has recently changed her hunting area, leading Shen to ask if she intends to eat the whole island with her mindset. Suddenly, the girl's expression changes and she clutches her heart, experiencing pain. When Shen asks about it, she reveals that her heart hurts, leaving him shocked. Upon seeing her body on the brink of collapsing, Kun reveals that this can be a side effect of remaining in human form for a long time, which confuses Shen. Kun explains that the transformation fruit compresses the essence of a monster's life into a small crystal, which can be dangerous. If the transformation prolongs, the excessive release of life essence can cause the blood vessels in the heart to burst. Kun reveals that it has already been a week since she transformed into a human, but because she is strong and has eaten the bitter gourd, she has been able to endure it thus far. Considering this, Kun urges Shen to quickly collect 100,000 evolution points in order to reform a transformation fruit for her. Shen begins consuming the crocodiles to accumulate points. He then leaves the cave to gather an additional 90,000 points. Realizing that there aren't many monsters in the ape's territory, he decides to search for another area and activates his compass. Upon seeing one area on the compass glowing, he believes there must be a strong monster there and wonders if he will be able to defeat it. However, he recalls his cowardly attitude in his past life and vows to never be docile and to fight to the death for his friend this time. With determination, he moves away, taking the ape with him and instructs the mouse to find a place to hide until he saves the ape. Along his journey, he encounters ancient tree frogs, initially finding them disgusting and throwing them away. However, after a while, he ends up eating them, realizing they provide a significant number of evolution points. To save the ape, he activates his binge-eating mode and vows to consume everything that can give him evolution points. Therefore, he proceeds to eat everything including frogs, giant centipedes, scorpions, meganora, and other insects until his nose begins to bleed. Feeling disgusted by consuming such repulsive insects, he wonders if it will be enough. Suddenly, he hears a monster's roar and feels relieved that he won't have to eat any more insects. Following the sound, Shen arrives at a location where a large group of spiny jackals has gathered and he wonders what they are doing there. Suddenly, one of the jackals leaps up to attack a giant ground sloth that is standing in front of them. However, the sloth swiftly kills the jackal with a single blow. As the jackal flies towards him, Shen catches it and consumes it while the sloth continues to eliminate more of the jackals. Shen observes the fight with interest, understanding that the more intense the battle, the weaker both creatures will become, making it more convenient for him to kill them. Meanwhile, the jackals overpower the sloth, causing it to fall to the ground. In that moment, the sloth notices Shen standing at a distance and gets rid of the jackals, rushing towards him with great speed. Assuming that it wants to fight him, Shen decides to confront it directly instead of blocking its powerful momentum. When the sloth reaches him, Shen uses his tail to make the sloth lose its balance, sending it flying in another direction and crashing into the ground. Shen approaches the fallen sloth and begins tearing its flesh apart, consuming it. This results in a significant increase in his evolution points, reaching up to 500, and he finds the meat to be quite delicious. Suddenly, Shen notices that the jackals have gathered around him and starts attacking them, tearing them apart as punishment for disturbing his meal. However, a pack of additional jackals surprises him, relentlessly rushing towards him. Undeterred, Shen continues to kill them using his teeth, claws, tail, and feet. At that moment, one of the jackals climbing up Shen's body notices the girl and swiftly moves to attack her. In response, the girl unleashes a war cry to fend it off. Noticing the danger, Shen quickly scoops up the girl in his hands, realizing that she wouldn't be able to defend herself against their attacks, while the jackal bites Shen instead. As the jackals continue to climb up his body, Shen activates his thorn armor and swiftly eliminates all of them in an instant. Witnessing the defeat of their comrades, the remaining jackals begin to howl loudly. Shen, while feasting on the corpses of the slain jackals, remarks that they have willingly presented themselves as food to increase his evolution points, giving them a thumbs up in acknowledgement. In response to the howls, the leader of the jackals emerges from the forest and begins approaching Shen. While feasting on the other jackals, Shen glances at the leader, considering the potential high evolution points he could gain by consuming it. However, realizing that the jackal's bones may be too difficult to chew and with plenty of food in front of him already, he decides to prioritize eating first. Shocked by Shen's apparent indifference, the jackal leaps up, aiming for a fatal attack. Irritated by the interruption while he is eating, Shen opens his mouth, initially confusing the jackal, but then turns away, instructing the jackal to stay aside and let him eat in peace. The leader, infuriated by being ignored despite his status, leaps up once again to launch another attack. However, before it can do so, Shen stands up, celebrating his acquisition of 100,000 evolution points. In the midst of his celebration, the jackal collides with him and falls to the ground. Quickly, Shen asks the system to analyze the fruit to reform it and looks at the girl, whose condition is deteriorating rapidly, wondering if she can hold on for another 15 minutes. Surveying the surroundings, Shen notices that there are no more creatures to devour for additional evolution points, considering the jackals to be responsible for that. Turning his attention to the leader of the jackals, Shen decides to gain evolution points by consuming him. As the jackal leaps up once more to attack, Shen catches it in his mouth, slowly crushing it with his teeth. Feeling its sharp claws, Shen forcefully throws it away, causing it to fall to the ground, fatally injured. Upon hearing the jackal's howls, Shen recalls the girl's words about fighting if one is unsatisfied in the territory of monsters, and he decides to follow her advice. As the jackal approaches him, Shen uses his massive hands to deliver a fatal blow, sending it flying and crashing into the ground, further fueling its anger. Suddenly, Shen's body begins to glow, confusing the jackal. This is followed by a massive radiation heat ray that strikes the jackal with such force that it causes an earth-shattering blast in the forest. The attack leaves the jackal crashing to the ground, experiencing intense pain from the burns. Realizing it is no match for Shen, the jackal starts howling and calls upon its subordinates, which only heightens Shen's excitement at the prospect of more food. However, he is puzzled by their continuous howling and looks around, wondering why they are behaving this way. Suddenly, a gigantic Bing Chi wolf emerges from behind, wielding a massive sword. Seeing this, Shen is both shocked and scared, questioning the nature of this creature and why it is carrying a sword unlike the others. As the wolf approaches, causing all the jackals, even their leader, to kneel before it, Shen realizes that it is as large as him and even wields a sword, making it appear more dangerous. To his surprise, the wolf keeps fixating on the girl with menacing intent, leading Shen to wonder if it, too, is a pervert. Suddenly, it leaps up to attack the girl, catching Shen off guard. He quickly dodges the attack, questioning why it would bully someone so weak. However, before Shen can fully comprehend the situation, the wolf uses its sharp claws to strike his face, causing blood to gush out. It becomes clear to Shen that the wolf was only pretending to attack the girl and was actually aiming for his eye. After landing on the ground, the wolf leaps up once again, clearly intending to attack the girl again. Shen realizes that he is exploiting his weakness by targeting the girl repeatedly, so he covers her with his hand. To his surprise, the wolf simply jumps to his back, demonstrating its superior ability to plan assaults compared to him. Once on Shen's back, the wolf leaps up once more to attack. This time, Shen blocks the attack by hurling massive bones from the creatures he had devoured in the wolf's direction. After the wolf momentarily backs off, Shen commands it to face him and unleashes a burst breath attack, burning half of the creature's body. As the enraged wolf stands before him, Shen exudes confidence, believing he will surely win the battle. However, at that moment, the wolf leaps high into the air, descending upon Shen and taking out the colossal sword, leaving him shocked. Using the sword, the wolf inflicts a deep wound on Shen's arm, causing it to bleed. Realizing that fighting bare-handed against a weapon will be difficult, Shen wonders if the wolf will prevail with little effort. With thoughts racing through his mind about a world where even wolves fight with swords, Shen contemplates running away. However, as a monster, he knows he cannot succumb to fear and flee simply because of a sword. So he decides to swiftly return, transform the girl back into an ape, and join forces to defeat the wolf. Putting the girl down, Shen instructs her to find a hiding spot, explaining that her presence on his body could weaken him. As he speaks, the wolf leaps once again, launching an attack and injuring Shen's thigh, causing him to crash into a tree. Enraged by the injury, Shen uproots the tree and hurls it towards the wolf, causing it to lose its balance. He then unleashes his burst of breath once more, directing it towards the wolf, which stands with a sword clutched in its mouth. To Shen's surprise, the wolf endures the impact of the burst breath and flips backwards. Noting that the wolf's rough skin and thick flesh make even the burst breath ineffective, Shen wonders why it hasn't let go of the sword in its mouth. Considering the sword to be even more dangerous than the wolf's claws and teeth, Shen resolves to find a way to knock it off. Pondering his options, he decides to launch a Kui Dragon Yakuza attack on the wolf. However, before he can do so, the leader of the jackals bites his leg, halting his movement while the wolf leaps up once again. Witnessing their collaboration, Shen is shocked and contemplates the numerous obstacles he must face. With the wolf facing him, sword in mouth, and the jackal positioned behind him ready to strike, Shen exclaims that they have no sense of martial ethics. While they are engaged in the fight, the death lark flies past, notices the girl sleeping on a tree branch and smiles, having finally found her. The bird swiftly approaches her at great speed, prompting her to awaken and scream, pounding her chest to alert Shen. Suddenly, Shen notices the bird and realizes that the girl is in danger while the bird continues to search among the trees, attempting to locate the hidden girl. In the midst of the chaos, Shen calls out to the girl while the wolf and jackal ruthlessly attack him from both sides, inflicting fatal injuries. Surrounded by his adversaries, Shen recollects that he had never had a friend in his previous life and resolves to protect her at all costs. With determination, he rushes towards the forest, vowing to fulfill his promise to help her. However, as he runs, the wolf employs its sword to launch another deadly attack, piercing through Shen's body while the jackal continues to bite him with its sharp teeth. As they draw closer, his body begins emitting small sparks of lightning, bewildering them. Explaining that he deliberately showcased his weaknesses to ensnare them, Shen proceeds to unleash his thorn armor, piercing through the wolf's body and causing severe injuries. Having dealt with the wolf, he turns his attention to the jackal who gazes at him, trembling with fear. Holding it up, he begins to devour it, leading to a great increase in his evolution points. Meanwhile, the wounded wolf watches him with shock in his eyes. Suddenly, Shen receives a notification that the analysis has been completed and he obtains the fruit. Tossing the fruit in the girl's direction, he instructs her to consume it. At that moment, the bird also locates her while she swiftly consumes the fruit. Just as the bird opens its mouth to attack her, Shen watches intently, awaiting her rapid transformation. Abruptly, her expression changes and she extends her hand towards the bird, which stands there, smiling. Reaching near the bird, her hand undergoes significant growth, delivering a powerful slap to the bird, causing it to lose its balance. This action is followed by a tremendous explosion in the forest, and from the billowing smoke, the girl, now transformed into a giant ape, emerges. With a single swing of her hand, she sends the death lark flying, causing it to crash to the ground. Realizing that she has transformed back, she becomes overjoyed and intends to kill the bird. However, Shen approaches her and suggests that they can make the bird their friend if he talks to it. Hearing this, the ape leaps into the air, declaring that she will be the one to talk, and lands on the bird's neck. She then begins to strike it forcefully, asking if it wants to be their friend, causing the bird to experience pain. After enduring the blows for some time, the bird musters the courage to rise and swiftly flies away, leaving the ape feeling angry. While beating her chest, the ape suddenly notices broken trees nearby and lifts them up, throwing them in the direction of the bird in an attempt to hit it. Observing her blind attack, the bird wonders if this is how one makes friends and curses the ape for her actions. Meanwhile, Shen gazes at her, feeling disappointed by her behavior but surprised by the bird's ability to curse. He acknowledges that if a wolf can use a sword and a gorilla can throw trees, then it's not too far-fetched for a bird to curse, though he still finds it peculiar. However, leaving the bird to the ape, he decides to deal with the wolf first and turns his attention to it, noticing the wolf gazing at them in shock. He wonders if the wolf's astonishment stems from the girl's transformation into a gigantic ape. Laughing, Shen states that now that he has a helper and the wolf no longer has the sword, it should simply retreat. However, to his shock, instead of running away, the wolf leaps up to launch another attack, leaving him wondering about its motives. Just then, the wolf jumps onto his back, making him realize that it doesn't want to fight but wants the sword back. Considering the risk he took to obtain the sword, Shen refuses to give it back and strikes the wolf, causing it to crash to the ground. Meanwhile, the ape, who has been observing the fight, notices the bird returning to launch an attack and uses her fists to fight back. In the meantime, Shen advises her to focus on the airborne attack, recognizing that the bird has the advantage of being in the air. Meanwhile, he starts to remove the sword from his body while the wolf climbs onto his back, attempting to pull the sword from its mouth. Witnessing this, the ape becomes worried for Shen, which distracts her from her own fight and allows the bird to strike her. Observing this, Shen reminds the wolf of the thorn armor he previously used, causing it to become scared and quickly retreat from him. As the wolf runs away, Shen turns his attention to the bird and unleashes his burst breath, directing it towards the bird and inflicting intense pain. Through the impact of this fatal attack, the bird falls at a distance while Shen gradually begins to lose his energy. Turning to the ape, he tells her that it all depends on her now and begins to collapse. Witnessing this, the ape jumps towards the approaching jackals and attacks them, swiftly eliminating them all. Just then, the wolf returns to launch an attack and rushes towards the ape, biting her leg with its shark teeth. Enraged, the ape strikes the ground with great force, attempting to crush the wolf. However, it quickly jumps up a tree, its eyes filled with malevolent intent. It then leaps down once again, targeting the ape and biting her hand while Shen watches, marveling at its agility and strength. Witnessing the suffering of the ape, Shen realizes that this wolf is indeed challenging to deal with. He also notices that the wolf treats its opponents in a snobbish way, adapting its fighting style based on their size and strength. At that moment, Shen notices the other wolves fleeing into the woods, realizing that this wolf has initiated the attack to buy them time to escape. Meanwhile, the wolf continues to assault the gorilla, tearing into its flesh with its sharp teeth. Just then, the wolf dodges the ape and comes rushing in Shen's direction, intending to pounce on him. This makes him realize that it is not trying to escape but to attack him. However, before it can do so, the ape tightly grabs the wolf with both hands from behind, swings it around, and hurls it away. This causes the wolf to crash into a tree and collapse to the ground. To Shen's surprise, the wolf rises once again, staring at him intently, leaving him pondering why it would continue to fight despite the odds being against it. It dawns on him that the wolf desires the sword, considering it a valuable treasure. Gazing at the wolf, Shen contemplates that its nature seems to resemble that of a human, leading him to believe that he should resolve the fight in a more civilized manner. With this in mind, Shen shouts, requesting the fight be halted and asks them to listen to him as he wishes to discuss something important. Although the ape initially refuses to stop, Shen explains that the wolf has neither encroached upon their territory nor taken their food, causing the ape to realize there is no need to continue fighting. Turning his attention to the wolf, Shen thinks that it has understood his words, pondering whether it has had prior contact with humans. This raises questions in his mind about the existence of humans on this island in the past. Stating that the sword seems to hold significance for the wolf, Shen declares that he will return it, proposing that they refrain from bothering each other thereafter. He states that he will simply draw the sword and give it back, seeking the ape's assistance in this endeavor. As soon as the ape begins to pull the sword out of his body, blood spurts out, causing immense pain for Shen, who fears he may die from the loss of blood. It is at this moment that the wolf lets out a sudden howl, capturing their attention. It proceeds to gather some mud from the ground and apply it to its leg, causing Shen to realize that applying clean soil to the wound can help stop the bleeding. This intensifies his belief that the wolf has indeed spent time with humans. Following the wolf's method, Shen takes some soil into his hand and instructs the ape to do the same. With their combined efforts, the ape successfully pulls out the sword while simultaneously pressing on the wound, stemming the flow of blood. Returning the sword to the wolf, Shen expresses his hope that it will honor the promise they made. Taking the sword, the wolf quietly begins to move away. As it walks through the woods, a girl standing nearby observes its departure and exclaims that since she could not obtain the ape's spirit core, she will take its spirit core away. After the wolf departs, the ape shows concern for Shen's well-being, to which he admits that he is not all right due to the fatal wounds he has suffered. Hearing that, the ape gathers some dirty soil from the ground, suggesting to press the wounds using that. However, Shen clarifies that he only feels hungry and requires food to replenish his energy and become healthy. Complying, the gorilla moves away, stating that she will find some food right away. After a while, she returns with some jackals and other dead animals and proceeds to light a fire to roast them. Taking one of the jackals, she cripples it on a pointed stick, which causes the jackal to experience immense pain, causing even Shen to remark that it was a cruel act. She then begins cooking them over the fire, while Shen instructs her to ensure proper cooking and avoid burning the meat. While cooking, the ape herself starts feeling hungry and impulsively reaches her hand directly into the fire to taste the food, prompting Shen to scold her for her actions. Realizing it would be very challenging to teach her, he wishes he had done it himself. Holding a burned and charred skewer in his hands, Shen reluctantly consumes it, despite its unpleasant taste, in order to earn evolution points. Observing the ape eating the charred food without complaint, Shen wonders what kind of food lover she is. After gaining evolution points from consuming the food, the system suggests that Shen heal his wounds, which he does, leading him to acknowledge his impressive devouring skill. However, Shen reflects on the day he resurrected as a monster, gaining the burst breath ability, which made him believe he could transform into a one-hit dragon and easily defeat everything. Yet, from that day on, the world seemed invincible, and he ended up being defeated by the formidable Deathlark. Recalling the ape's mention of the immense power of the dead rotten reptiles king, Shen realizes he never considered the power gap between himself and that creature. Determined to continue his lifestyle of devouring and accumulating more evolution points to become stronger, he decides to make the ape stronger as well. He understands that powerful allies can increase their chances of success. Remembering something, he asks the ape about the whereabouts of the bird. After it was hit by the burst breath, the ape points in a direction, leading Shen to discard the skewer and rush towards it, hoping that the bird might have perished and he could finally feast on roasted chicken. However, upon reaching the location, he finds it empty, wondering how the bird disappeared without their notice. Just then, Kun appears and informs Shen that it senses the energy waves of monsters transforming into humans, leaving him shocked as he asks if the bird transformed into a human form. Doubtful, as transformation requires a transformation fruit, Shen regards Kun suspiciously, who explains that it had no involvement in that and would never pity a cruel bird. Reminding Shen of the instance when the bird extracted a nucleus from a pterosaur's corpse to consume for healing, Kun reveals that crystal nucleus serve as the healing source for monsters, akin to flesh for Shen. While Shen stands conversing with Kun, the ape, who is unable to see Kun, wonders if Shen has gone mad and started talking to himself. Meanwhile, Shen curiously asks if the bird can also use the crystal nucleus to level up, to which Kun admits unawareness and offers to analyze it. Considering that even the burst breath failed to kill the bird, Shen expresses uncertainty about who will be the next one to die. However, Kun assures him that it can analyze the bird through a small piece of its skin if he brings one. Declining the offer due to time constraints, Shen instructs Kun to handle the matter itself. Afterward, he rises and tells the ape to accompany him back to his territory, stating that there is no food left in her territory. While heading back, he anticipates the expressions of the monsters who celebrated his departure upon his return with another foodie. 1 week later, Shen wakes up and emerges from the cave to find that the ape has gathered all the food and vegetables, while the mouse has gathered wood. While inspecting the food, Shen discards the poisonous items and informs the ape that these things don't taste good as she takes notes. Afterward, the ape starts preparing the skewers. Observing her, Shen realizes that he should also teach her how to ignite a fire using wood and stones so that he only has to sign in, eat, and become stronger with each passing day. Shen requests the system sign him in again and he feels elated and thrilled when he receives a Dragon Kui battle roar as a reward. After continuously signing in for about a month, Shen receives congratulations and is rewarded with a new monster power gift pack, intensifying his excitement as he inquires about its contents. Explaining that it is much more significant than skills, Kun informs him that it contains essential adventure auxiliary functions such as the system shop and system map along with 300,000 evolution points. Overwhelmed with joy upon receiving such a remarkable gift, Shen urges Kun to quickly open the shop so he can explore the treasures within and make purchases. We really hope that you enjoyed this manhwa. Make sure to like and subscribe for more.